They thought it was so funny.
Boker Tov. Boker Tov. Today's Daf is Daf Lamed Hey in Bava Kama 304. The Mishnah had said that there were several cases where sometimes your animal is chayiv, you're chayiv for your animal's action, you're chayiv to pay, and your putts are on your own, and the vice versa also. Sometimes you are chayiv for your own and your putts are for your animal. For example, if your animal embarrassed somebody, that doesn't count, right? You don't have to pay for that. So if you embarrass somebody by hurting them, then you do have to pay for voshes. And other cases were brought down. The last case in the Mishnah was where if a person, if an animal, let's say if an animal burnt down your neighbor's barn or his stack of pile of grain, whatever, on Shabbos, you're chayiv to pay for that if your animal did it, because your animal caused that damage, right? So even if he's a tom and you pay half, whatever, well, it depends on what was the nature of the animal. But the point is that you have to pay for that. But if you did it on Shabbos, you're putter, since you're chayiv misa, so you don't have to pay for it. You don't have to pay for the damage you did, because come Rav Meir. That's what the Mishnah said. Then the Gemara said, at the beginning of the Gemara yesterday's daf, the end of the daf. Anytime when you do damage on Shabbos, you're putter for that. You're only chayiv on a malacha on Shabbos if you accomplish something. But if you do damage, you're putter, except for chutz mi chovel mas, except if you hurt somebody physically, draw blood, or you make a fire. Amalei Rabbi Yochanan said, no, go out, teach this outside the base medrash. We don't know. What you said is wrong. Chovel u'maver ain't a Mishnah. This idea that chovel u'maver you're chayiv even when you don't accomplish something is not a Mishnah is wrong. Mishnah, if you want to say it is a Mishnah, if you want to say that it does count, if you want to say that it does count, that it's meaningful, that it's correct, if you want to say that you did learn that chovel u'maver chayiv on Shabbos, it's chovel b'tzarach b'kabel. Let's say when it didn't just have a damaging purpose, a destroying purpose, that you destroyed something, but rather you damaged a person, you hurt somebody to draw blood because your dog needed the blood to eat. The dog, that's all he wanted was his dog food was blood. So there was a purpose to it. Then you're chayiv on Shabbos. Or maver b'tzarach la'afro. Let's say you make a fire because you need the ashes for some purpose, for some reason. So then you could say that you're chayiv, but otherwise, stam damaging is always putter. That's what Rabbi Yochanan maintains. That's by Shabbos. So says the Gemara, what about our Mishnah? Our Mishnah says, if your animal burnt down your neighbor's stack on Shabbos, you're chayiv to pay. As we said. Why? Because we're assuming that the Mishnah is comparing times when you're chayiv and you're chayiv for what your animal did and your putter for what you did the same thing, and vice versa. Well, Tani hu demir shoro. He's like the shore, just like the shore, the local boy. Like obviously, if the shore burnt it down, he doesn't need the ashes. He doesn't need, why would he burn it down? The shore doesn't know what he's doing. He might intend to do damage, but he doesn't need the item. So just like shore, he doesn't need it. Afu at the top of Lamed Hey, Afu Nami, the local boy, we're saying where he doesn't need it. And still you say, Viktani, he doesn't have to pay for the damages, for the fire that he destroyed, because he's chayiv misa. So you see you're chayiv even when there is no toelis, there is no good purpose. It's just for destruction. So it's neighbor's doesn't get paid for it. It's lost. It gets lost. Correct. That's the idea of Kamar Ramene. Like on Shabbos. Pardon? It's not his fault. That's how Kamar Ramene works. I throw the rock on Shabbos or a knife across the street, right? Damage somebody else, you put them from paying. That's the right thing is to do to pay. But your putter actually from paying. In court, you can't hold you responsible. The right thing is to do to pay for it. And it's not like you're really not chayiv to pay. It's just that you are, since you have the a greater punishment of it's a capital case, you're putter from paying for it. So what do you see though? You see even when there's no tolls, because the animal, we're saying if the animal does it, you have to pay. If you do it, you don't have to pay. Well, when the animal did it, there can't be any good purpose for it. The animal's just burning things down because the animal wants to destroy it. The animal can't be thinking there's a purpose for it. He's making a fire because he needs the ashes. Could he be thinking about that? We'll see. But we're assuming now that he can't be thinking about it. So if that's the case, same thing when the person doesn't need it and still he's chayiv misa. So you see, not like Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan says that any destructive purpose any destruction at all with no ultimate purpose, you're putter on Shabbos. Not like Rabbi Vu told him. Says the Gemara, no. We can't make sure not manafsho. Says no, show them the day. It's not true. Don't assume that, and just like your shore couldn't have had any ultimate purpose, he only had a destructive purpose. Same thing with him, with the man who did it. No, just a man might need the ashes, right? Afshor also the kaboyle. So maybe the animal also did it because he wants the ashes. In other words, you're chayiv if your animal did it. If you did it, you're putter because you're chayiv on Shabbos. Why are you chayiv on Shabbos? It's not putter on Shabbos. You're chayiv on Shabbos because you needed the ashes. Okay, you need the ashes. But how can you say the shore needs it? How can you have a case where a shore did it? He burnt it down because he wanted the ashes. I'm going to be careful talking about a smart shore, smart for being a shore, not smart as a person. He had a scratch on, he had an itch on his back, and he wanted to burn down the stack, the ingder equipment, to roll in the ashes. In other words, a shore has enough knowledge that he knows if he makes a fire and the ashes that will result from there, he can roll in them and relieve his itch. How do we know that that's what the shore was going to do? The labos looked like, because after he burnt it down, because actually that's what he did. He actually rolled in it, so you could tell that he did that. So here again, we're speaking where there was a purpose, but Rabbi Yochanan maintains his shita that all makalkalin on Shabbos, if you just have a destructive, any of the malachas that you do, but you did it only with a destructive, there was no ultimate, purpose or toelis for it, you're putter. Not like Rav said, Mika kihai gavna. Wait a minute, is there really such an animal? Can you really have an animal smart enough to do all this kind of stuff? The same. There was an ox, Papa had an ox, he had a very sore tooth, he had a toothache, right? His molars hurt him. He went into the barn of Paske, then his eyes, he opened up the barrel, he removed the lid of the barrel, he drank some beer until he obtained relief from drinking the beer. Sometimes animals are smart enough to do it. Can you really say? Now, Rashi had pointed out already, the shore is, you're high for what your shore did if the shore had a purpose or not, right? Your shore went in, did damage. Your shore went into somebody else's property and lit a fire. And if you went into somebody else's property, presumably he's chayav. Well, that's a machlokas. We're talking not if he's a tom, if he's chayav even for somebody else's property. If the punishment here is Karen, and if the thing is Karen, Aisha we talk about is usually when a person does the fire. But whatever he's chayav for, he's chayav. If he's chatzin nezik or nezik shalem, so you're chayav either way, whether he had intention or not. But the point is, the mission was relating and saying cases where if your animal does it, you're chayav, and you do it, you're putter, or vice versa. So we have to talk about where they both had the same kind of intention. That's what we're trying to. The animal you're chayav for what your animal did, whether it was intention or not. You can't prove whether you can prove intention or not. If you know that the animal did the damage, you have to pay. But we're trying to say that in this case, the animal and the person had the same kind of intention. There was an ultimate good purpose, or it was simply destruction. So that's why we say that the same. But the Gemara says, can you really say? Papa says now. The Rabbi said, "Can you really say that the shore is like Imakani shore shabayish pata?" How can you say that we're talking about where he had intention, the man had intention to do something, and if the animal had the same intention, you're putter. If an animal embarrassed somebody, you're putter. Meaning when he hurt somebody and embarrassed him, he shamed him, you're putter to pay for your animal's busha. You have to pay for the damage that your animal did, but not for the shaming that he did. But if you embarrass somebody by hurting them, you're chayav. No, how can you have shomer dumidi day? How can you have that a shore had intention to embarrass somebody? You could say that a shore had intention to damage, but you say that a shore had intention to embarrass somebody. Can we relate that much intelligence to a shore? No, he doesn't have to have intention to shame. He just has to have intention to damage. If he had intention to damage, in other words, we learned before, remember the 5 things, Nezek, Sabri, Shef, Zabosh, that you're chayiv to pay. Boshes, you're only chayiv, but there was intention. It doesn't necessarily mean intention to shame. It means intention to do damage. If you had intention to do damage, then you're chayiv. So the Amar is Kav Mahazik, chayiv there too. So if the animal had intention to damage, even if he did intention to shame, there is shame there. But for an animal, you're not chayiv for shame, only for the person that's. Rabbi gives a different answer to the question of Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Amar Mastis B'Shogeg. Rabbi says, Rashi tells us difference from Rashi here in the whole gang in Tosas, but Rashi learns that The Masnisin, the Mishnah is speaking about B'shogeg, meaning we're not going to have to speak where that you burnt down because you needed the ashes, and the animal also was wanted the ashes, and in that case, you're chayiv for the animal and you're putter for yourself, because Rabbi Yochanan says, speaking where the kilkel was for some purpose, the destruction was for some purpose. Rabbi says, no. The Mishnah is speaking about where you did the whole thing b'shogeg. So even if you weren't intention, below Rashi says, below you didn't have the reason you're putter to pay is not because you really chayiv misa, but you did it b'shogeg. You did it malach on Shabbos b'shogeg, meaning you didn't know it was Shabbos, you didn't know there was Zasar, it was inadvertent. You could have done it b'chizkiah. The Talmud b'chizkiah makanam the pasuk says makei nefesh behema yishalmenu makei adam yamas. That's one pasuk. If you kill an animal, you have to pay for it. If a person kills an animal, somebody else's animal, you have to pay for it. If you kill a person, you will die. What's the comparison between the two? If you killed an animal, we learned before, if you kill somebody else's animal, whether it's an accident on purpose, or not, whether whether the motion that you used to kill the animal was an upwards or a downwards motion, there's no way to potter el. There's no difference when you kill somebody else's animal, intentional or not, however you did it on the side, but you kill them, you have to pay. The same person, when you kill a person, it makes a difference with shogeg or mazid. Points your chayv moment. Yes, there is a difference if in terms of shogeg, if you did it yerchirida or chalil, like the Gemara says in Makkos, how you killed the person, and there is a difference if you're chayv misa, not if you did b'mezid or you didn't do b'mezid, edom and asura, etc. But in all cases, you're pater mamon, just like you always chayv mamon by behema, no matter what you have to pay for the animal. The same way you're always pater from mamon, you're always pater to pay when you kill a person, whether you did it intentionally or not. It's not like we say, "Kom le'berabine." Oh, since you're chayiv misa, you don't have to pay. No, if it's an action, if it's a capital case, even though you're actually not chayiv misa, because you can't kill the guy who did it, shalom kabbalah, shogeg, whatever, didn't do it in the right way, you're always pater moment. Amalei Rabbana, and therefore the Mishnah is speaking about where you had no kabbalah at all. You didn't have to give the example of kabbalah. You didn't have a kabbalah. You're still pater anyway. You wanted to say, since just like by Shiur, you said over there, he didn't have intention for something, for some ultimate good purpose, for some reason he destroyed it for the ashes or not. You don't have to give that whole reason and say, yeah, speaking where he had intention. There was no intention at all. Mishnah is simply saying that when your animal does it, you have to pay. When you do it, you don't have to pay no matter what, because it's a capital case. It's a capital case of, since it's your chayiv on Shabbos for a malach that you did on Shabbos, it's a capital case, even though you're not actually killed. There was no Adam, there was no Asra, you did it for Shogeg, it was whatever you did, because since it's a capital case, you're part of the moment. Amalei Rabbana L'Rava, Mimatz's Muktzah Mishogeg, can you say I'm Mishogeg? The last words of the Mishnah were that if you lit a fire in your neighbor's barn on Shabbos, on his stack of wheat, whatever, you're pater from paying because you're chayiv misa. It's mashma, we're talking about a case where you did it for Mesa. Right? That's what we learned in the end of the mission. So it's mashma that we're talking about where you killed the guy. How can you see that b'shogeg? Keep it the mezid dot menafsha. Since if you did it to mezid, it's a capital case. You'd be chayiv misa because you were mechal Shabbos. If you did a mezid, or let's say where you needed the offer, you burned something down for a purpose. Again, the way Rabbi Yochanan learns is that mekalkal on Shabbos, mekalkal or maver b'Shabbos with only a destructive purpose, you're pater on Shabbos. And of course, pater means pater avalasar. You're pater. Here we're speaking about but since it would be a capital case, if you needed the afar, that means you did a melacha with an ultimate purpose. They can be chayiv there, according to Belchanan. Hashtem b'shogeg, also your pater. In other words, because of Marka Behema, the concept of Komlev Rabine that says that when you're chayiv misa for something, you're pater from paying, or when you're chayiv misa, you're pater, let's say, from malchus. Komlev Ram means that your yotze with the more stringent punishment. That applies even when you don't actually get the more stringent punishment. Why? Because just like Makeh Behema, there's no difference how you did it, you have to pay. Makeh Adam also, or in a capital case, whether you did it where you're actually going to get misa, or you're not going to get misa, kavana, not kavana, in all cases, you're pater from paying. So Kavanah applies in all cases, and therefore the Mishnah is big. So Rabbi Yochanan stands his ground. And we have this machlokas, whether on Shabbos, if you do something destructive with no ultimate purpose for it, just to destroy. Rabbi Yochanan says you're pater in all cases, and Ravu said no, you're chayiv and chovel and maver. Now, going back to our case of animals doing damages to animals, and we said Tom pays chatzin ezek from the goof of the animal. What happens when you're not sure? When you're not sure a case if this animal, if the mazik's animal damaged the nizik's animal, for example, shore. We have a shore, an attacking shore running after a shore that's going to be attacked. Now, the animal of the nizik is the one whose animal was attacked, and the mazik is the one who did the attacking. But over here, we don't know for sure. There were no eyewitnesses. So you have one animal running after another animal. Then you see the animal that was being pursued is hurt. Right? The nizik says your shore did the damage. You have to pay. No, he tripped. He was running. True, my animal was chasing your animal. Let's say we agree on that. But he just, it was an accident at the end of the day. As he was running away, your animal tripped on a rock and hurt himself and fell down. So all there is this grumma. And maybe I caused him by running after him, but I didn't actually do it. So what's the Romos Mechabel of right? As we say, if there's no proof, there's no witnesses, go prove it. I'm not going to pay you anything, right? You have no witnesses. That's very simple. Let's say there were three people involved. Two animals were running after an animal, right? Two animals were running after a third animal. They all had different owners. Now they agree. Okay, let's say even there's a witness that one of the animals damaged the other animal, right? Somebody's, but you don't know whose. Each one says the other guy. One guy says, no, it wasn't my animal. It was the other guy's animal. The other guy says the same thing. They're both potter. Same idea. Both will have a right. Let's say the two attacking animals both belong to one guy. Right? Now, right? Shneim chayavim, they're both chayav. What does it mean, shneim chayavim, they're both chayav? You take the money out of one of them, right? Out of one of them. Only one of them presumably did the damage. So they're both chayav in what sense? So we'll see if these are short time that you get paid out of the animal that did the damage. Let's say one ran away and you can't tell if it was him or not, then you wouldn't be able to collect. But if they're both here, you could take the money out of one of them because you're taking the money out of, let's say, whichever, presumably the smaller one, right? Because that's all you can claim. Let's say one of the attacking animal is so small that he wasn't worth the chatzin ezek, wasn't even worth the damage that he did. So that big more we'll talk about that. Right? Let's say the two animals, right? Let's say the two attacking animals belong to one guy. One was a big animal, one was a small animal, right? What do we say? Now remember, how does the short time pay? Out of the goof of the animal, right? Out of the body. Now let's say we're not sure. The mazik admits that one of his animals hurt the other animal, killed him, killed the other animal. But the mazik says it was my smaller animal because the smaller animal doesn't have that much meat and it's not worth that much. So, and all you can get is chatzin ezek out of that. There's not enough to pay for the chatzin ezek out of the smaller animal. So what happened over here? Again, the owner of the attacking animals owned two animals, a big one, a small one. The nizik says, well, the bigger one did the damage because it's worth more money, so I'll be able to recover my chatzin ezek from there. Loki, no, says no. Only the smaller one did it. He's sure. Now he admits that one of his animals killed the nizik, but he says it was a smaller one. Or echatam v'chemud. Let's say they were both the same size, but one of the two attacking animals was a mu'ed. It means he has to pay full damages, and one is as a tam only has to pay half. And nizik, what is a nizik naturally going to say? The mu'ed did the damage. Or a mu'ed. Nizik b'masik omelo ki ella tam ma'azik. Again, a mosmich v'avraya. Prove it. And if you can't prove it, what would happen? Take one from the lesser one. That's what we're assuming. That's what's mashma from Mishnah. The Gemara will tell us though that it's a slightly different case. Why? Because this is a case of where I say I lent you some wheat. I gave you some wheat, and you say no. I lent you barley. Okay, I lent you barley. Now can't prove it. What happens in a case like that? So barley is worth less, right? So would I at least collect the barley? No, because I didn't ask for barley. I said, I lent you wheat, I didn't lend you barley. So I effectively said, I didn't give you any barley. So when you admitted that you were barley, you want to give me something as a gift, fine. but I effectively admitted that I didn't give you any barley. So over here, if I say it was the bigger animal that did the damage, you say no, it was your smaller animal, and you can't prove it. Now you can't prove it. Collect the smaller one. No, I said it wasn't the smaller one. The smaller one didn't do any damage to me, so maybe you wouldn't get anything. And more we'll talk about that, right? Huh? No, not necessarily, because he says if the nizik says that animal, the big one, did the damage, the other guy says no, that animal didn't do it. It was my smaller animal. He didn't say one of them did it. He says we're talking if you're not sure which one did it. That's different. When he says one of your animals did, I can't tell which one. And the other guy says, yeah, it was the smaller one. Then you're right. But if he says, I know that it was the big one, it wasn't the small one. The small one ran away. He didn't do it. So how can you collect from the small one? He himself admits, no, I didn't. It wasn't the small one. It was the big one. But I can't prove it. Gets nothing. Think about it. Okay, we'll talk about it tomorrow. So Loki Elataamizik. Again, let's say there were two animals. The nizik had two animals, a big one and a little one. And the mazik also. There were two guys, Reuben and Shimon. The mazik had two animals, and the nizik had two animals, both a big and a big one. And the big ones attacked the little ones. Right? Nizik says, Gadol hizik a gadol. The big one hit the big one because there's more damage on the bigger one, and I'm going to collect big. That's a cotton. And the small one attacked the small one, so there's less to collect there because there's less damage also. The small one hit your big one, so there's less to collect in there. The bigger one, but he admits that his animals did the damage. Or the same thing would be. The muad damaged the bigger ones. There's what to collect from. The smaller one, or the less obligated one, the one only pays chatzin hit the big animal. And the muad hit the small one. So again, there's less for you to collect from. So in all these cases, is now does everybody agree with that? No. Simchas is in a famous case. We're going to have a case soon in the next week or two. That a famous case. Shiur killed the para. Now the para was pregnant, and you see the baby was lying dead when we saw the Shiur kill the para. But we're not sure is the baby born before or not. Do you pay for the baby or not? You pay for the para. It pays chatzi nezek or nezek shalom, depending on piece of time, right? But what do you do for the baby? So the Mishnah says over there, you pay not half, you pay a quarter, because we're not sure. Did the Shiur kill the baby, or maybe the baby was stillborn before the thing took place? We're not sure. You split it 50-50. And that's Simchas Shita. When you're not sure, you split it. So he says, you know what our Mishnah says? If you can't prove it, you get nothing. You get nothing maybe, right? Now, depending on what his argument is, right? But if the Nizik says, I know it was the big one, and you say, no, it was the little one, right? And I can't prove that it was the big one, I get nothing because I said it wasn't the little one, right? So, okay, but if it's, so in a case where we're both sure, that's the argument over here. So our Mishnah is a Muslim Mechavaraya. Our Mishnah goes against Sumchas. And he says money that's a suffix. We don't know. Was the baby calf killed by the Shiur, by the goring ox, or was he dead before? We don't know. You split it. So you see here, our Mishnah says they don't split it in this case. You say did someone say his case even when they're both sure? They're both sure. I know it was the big one, and you say no, it was the little one, right? You're both sure. Did he say it even in a case like our Mishnah speaking about? Did he even say that? Maybe Simcha says when one says we don't know what happened over here. Maybe over there it's neither one's sure. Nobody knows when was the calf. When did the calf die? Before the attack or after the attack? Maybe there he says no. Simcha says it even when they're both sure. So if that's the case, how do you know our Mishnah is speaking about Bari? You said our Mishnah, they're both sure. Did Sumchas, you say our Mishnah doesn't agree with the Sumchas as if to say that Sumchas is talking also about a case of Bari. We understand that Sumchas may be talking about where even the claimant is sure, and the other guy's not sure. The mazik is not sure. So, okay, you're not so sure. Split it 50-50. Did he say even when they're both sure? He says, yeah. How do you know our Mishnah speaking about Bari? The Tani our Mishnah said Zel Mashorches, etc. Zel Omer Lo Ki Ella. He wants this. your shore did the damage. And what did the other guy say? Loki, Ella, it wasn't my shore. Ella ki Luka. The beginning of the mission was Ella Loki, Ella Basella. The first case where there was one shore following another shore, right? And the Nizik says, your shore hurt my animal, and I'm sure I saw him do it. I'm sure of it. And the other one says, no, Loki, it's not what happened. He tripped on a rock. I didn't do anything. So they're both sure. Okay, so Rav Misha speaking, we're assuming now, Bari, and that's what Rav Simcha is talking about. Even where they're both sure, you split it. Amish says you don't split it. You say Moshe Mechabel Varaya, like we paskin, Mideration Bari, since the first case, where one animal's running after another animal. Bari, Seif and Ami Bari, the Seif also. What does the Seif say? He had two animals. Nizik Omer Gadol Hizik. Umazik Omer Loki Ella Katan Hizik, right? The smaller one Hizik. Or Echatam Vechad Muay. Nizik Omer Muay. The Nizik is the bigger one. The Muay that has to pay full damages did the damage. Hizik Vamazik Omer Loki Ella Tam Hizik. Hamotzim Mechabel Varaya, right? Hello, Maisi Raya. It's mashma like, what did we say? What did Avram say? If he can't bring a proof, Shakul Karam Masik. You'll say the Masik said, like, that's what we said. That's what you said, Avram, that if he can't prove it, I can't prove that it was the bigger animal that did the damage or that it was the muay that did the damage, right? So we'll say like the mazik is. The mazik admits it was the smaller one or the Tom who did it. So if that's the case, then we have to the Rav Navnasa. That's a kash on Rav Arnasan to Amar Tanuchik Basarm. If I claim you owe me wheat and you say no, it was only barley, Tatar, I don't have to pay. You don't have to pay the barley either, because I didn't lend you any barley. You want to give me a gift, fine, but you're putter from paying the barley also, because I never claimed any barley. I said, yeah, I didn't give you any barley. So your putts here too. Over here, if I'm sure that it was the big animal that did the damage, and you say no, it was the other animal damage, and I can't prove my case. So why do we assume that I should get the smaller one? The smaller one didn't do the damage. I have no claim on that. So and Rabbi Bar Nosson says in a case like that, I shouldn't get the smaller one either. Not like it's mashma. My mission is mashma. Okay, if I can't prove it, I'll get the smaller one. But that goes like not like Rav Nosson. Ella b'bari b'shema. Ella, it's not where they're both sure. Because if they're both sure, I'm sure I gave you wheat, and you're sure it was barley, and I can't prove the case of wheat. I don't collect the barley either, because I'm sure it wasn't barley, so I have nothing to claim. If they're both sure, Elamai, the Mishnah is not speaking about bari. Ela b'bari b'shema. Okay, the kavma bari man, the kavma sheman. Who said who's bari, who's shema? Iname the kavma nizik bari. If the nizik says I'm sure, I was when my animal was killed. The kavma nizik bari. If you say the nizik is sure, and the mazik says shema, sakat le'mativ to Rabbi Nasa, it's still for sure. If I say it was for sure the big one, and you say you're not sure, so still it's a kasher of Rav Nasa. Rav Nasa says, if I say it's the big one, I still can't collect the barley, or I can't collect the smaller animal, because I said it wasn't the smaller animal that did damage, even if you're not sure. Ela de kama nizik shema. Maybe the nizik said, I'm not sure. I said, one of your two animals did it, I'm not sure. I think it was the bigger one, I'm not sure. But kama mazik bari, the bari says, no, I know for sure it was the smaller animal, or the tom. So then you could say, oh, in that case, it makes sense to say that if I can't prove my case, I think it was the bigger one, I'm not sure. We'll go with what you said, it's a smaller one, so I'm collecting the smaller one. Umida Seifa Nizik Shema Umazik Bari, since the Seifa speaking about only makes sense. Otherwise, it's a kasher of Rav Nassan. Rav Nassan says, if I know for sure it was wheat and you say it was barley, I get nothing. So if I know for sure it was the bigger animal and you say it was a smaller animal, right? You're both sure, get nothing. No. Speak about where I say I'm not sure. I think it was a big one, but it might have been the smaller one. I'm not sure. And you say, it was a smaller one, then it makes sense to say, if I can't prove my case, I'll take the smaller one because I'm not so sure. Umida Seifa Nizik Shema Umazik Bari, Reishanami Nizik Shema Mazik Bari. So wait a minute. So the ratio, the first case, one animal's running after another animal, and the animal that's being pursued is found lying on the ground. The Nizik says your animal probably did it. Probably your animal. And the mazik says, I'm sure it wasn't. I'm sure he tripped on a stone. So, but Amr Sumchas Afilu Baha, Sumchas would even say there, you split it. Think about it. Your animal is pursuing my animal. I say, I'm not sure, but I think your animal hurt my animal. And you're sure that it wasn't your animal. It's you saying for sure it tripped on a stone. Would Sumchas say over there, you split it? I'm not even sure if your animal did it. Right? But Amr Sumchas Afilu Baha. even there he would say that you split it, the Itzrach Lashmin and the low, that the bishop say, no, Motz Mechavel Varai, with some people there says low. Seifa, Nizik, Shema, Mazik, Bar. You're right. In the Seifa, the Nizik is not sure whether it was which one of two animals, and the Mazik is sure that it was a smaller one. There you could say, fine, if I can't prove my case, I'll take the small one, because I'm not so sure anyway. Reisha, Nizik, Bari, Mazik, Shema. In the Reisha, the Nizik is sure. I'm sure your animal did it. My animal didn't trip. Your animal did it. And the Mazik is a Shema. There, Simcha says you split it, because I'm sure your animal hurt my animal. You're not so sure if it tripped or not. There you say you split it. I've a low dummy racial say, so if that's the case, they're not the same. The Reisha is speaking about where the Mazik, the Reisha is speaking where the Nizik is Bari and the Mazik is Shema. The Seif is speaking where the Nizik is Shema and the Mazik is Bari. So Amri Bari b'Shema, Shema b'Bari Chad Milsa. It's the same idea. It's just you're not sure who's the Bari, who's the Shema. So the Mishnah could be speaking about both cases of Bari Shema. In the first case, the Nizik is a Bari and the Mazik is a Shema. And in the latter case, it's reverse, where the Nizik is a Shema and the Mazik is a Bari. But it's the same idea. But if you say Bari is Chad Milsi, Bari, Shema Bari, Tremil, those are two different things. You wouldn't say that Mishnah is speaking about one case is Bari, one case is Bari Shema. But if both cases are Bari Shema, just the question is who's Bari and who's Shema, then the Mishnah can be speaking about that case. However, so in the Kasha, when he says below Dami Reisha, if they're not the same, but why don't you say the Reisha is also Bari? Maybe only there, that even over there, Simchus would say, in other words, when Simchus says you split it, it makes sense to say you split it when the Nizik is Bari. I'm sure your animal hurt my animal. You're not so sure. So you say, you know what, we better split it, because I'm sure it was your animal. So we split it 50-50. The 50% that the Tom would have to pay, we'll split it 50-50, pay a quarter, right? 50-50. There it makes sense. When you say even when they're both sure, that's a bigger chiddush. So in the kasha, maybe if they're not the same, maybe say even in the ratios, Bari, and Simchas would say his case even there. We can't prove that. So that's going to be a discussion later on when Simchas says you split it. Maman amut b'safek. You have this money, you're not sure what to do, right? There are cases in the Torah where you're not sure what to do. You leave it at Shiur Elio, right? Until Elio will come to him. We can't prove. What do you do, right? When two people claim that one person says, I gave one of you the money, and I'm not sure which one, and they say it was the other guy. What do you do? Sometimes you leave it at Shiur Elio. Here, in this case, where it's a stuff that cannot be determined, Sumcha says in the case of the calf that's dead on the street, you're not sure, did the shore kill it, or was there a stillborn before, miscarried before the shore did the attack? So he says you split it, but you split on what circumstances? Were they both sure, or were they both Shema? That's the question, or was Bar B'Shema? It's more likely to say you split it when the one who's the nizik, the plaintiff, who's complaining that he's hurt, when he's sure, then you could say you split it. But otherwise, in this case that we mentioned, I claim I gave you wheat, and you say I gave you barley. I don't have to pay it. If I can't prove the wheat, you don't have to pay the barley either, because I claim I didn't give you barley. Mike Mash, what's the chiddush? Potter. What's Rabbi Barnos teaching us? Are you teaching us that if I claim wheat and the other guy saying you're potter, it's a Mishnah. If I claim wheat and you admit it to barley, you don't have to pay anything. If I can't prove the wheat, you don't have to pay barley either. You may also have me in a potter. So I think from there, you're chayv. Let's say a bushel of wheat is worth $100 and a bushel of barley is worth $50. So when I say you owe me a bushel of wheat, and you say there was a bushel of barley, so you don't have to pay. If I can't prove the case, you don't have to pay the wheat, but maybe you have to pay at least the value of the barley. That's what you might think based on the mission. So Rabbi Nasnicha, no, you're potter entirely. The potter legami. Tanan. Our mission said that if there were two animals that were damaged, right, and they claimed back and forth, the Nizik says a big one damaged a big one, small one damaged. He has to prove it. If you can't bring proof, shakul could omer mazik. Apparently, you take it like the mazik said. Now, let's take the smaller one. Amai chitim b'sarim. The same condition we brought up before is chitim b'sarim. You have to pay. The answer is roy lito. It means this. It doesn't mean you have to pay. It means that if you can prove it, then it's fit. But he can't prove it. Ein leilo. Roy lito. In other words, he should get the smaller one, but he didn't claim that. He's sure that it was the bigger one, and he says it's not the smaller one. I vatanya raise a mishtalim. At least you can get the minimal on the cotton from the garden on the garden you get the toughest. Even though we say that if I claim wheat and you claim barley, you're potter to pay the barley. However, if the person who made the claim grabbed the barley or grabbed the value of the barley, he would keep it. In other words, even though he has no claim in court, but if he grabbed it, he would keep it. Again, our Mishnah says if one was a muad, and this gomer muad is a gadol, the muad is the bigger one, so there's more to pay. The Thomas a cotton, the mas gomer lo kiela, Thomas a gadol, muad is a cotton. It's the other way around, so there's less to pay because your larger animal that suffered a bigger loss was only injured by a tom, so I only pay chatzin as a cotton. Masim raya again. Hello, Masiraya. If I can't prove it, Shaku Kanamar Masik. Technically, Masik says, it's again, I'm sure and you're sure. If we're both sure, it's Chit and Visarim. And it says, Roy Lito, he's fit. Roy Lito, Rashi says, Imaisiraya. If you were going to prove, then you could do Roy. Ainlo means Ilo Maisiraya. You can't think, Ainlo, Roy Lito. If you would bring proof, you could. But you're not good. If you can't give proof, you get nothing. I Vatanya raise a mishtal and Lakatan and Amu and Lagalam and Atam. I said you do get the smaller amount. You pay the gotten from the Mu and the Galam and Atam. That was again only if he grabbed it. Even according to Rabbi Nassan, if he grabbed it, if he seized the property, then we don't take it away. So again, I made a claim of wheat and you made a claim of you countered with a claim of barley, and I can't prove the wheat. I'm not entitled to the barley either. But if I grabbed it, you wouldn't take it away. It's one of those cases where we say he's least entitled to something, even though are they talking about both bar? Apparently, we're speaking about cases of bari. In our Mishnah, we explained in the way we explained the Mishnah, so it shouldn't be a kasha on Rabbi Nassim. We said it's speaking where the nizik was a shema. So in a case like when nizik was a shema, he's not sure himself. Then it makes sense to say collective. But if they're both sure, it's problematic.
In the case of papas, he's actually switching them mostly to tavera.
Right. Because he didn't prove it and he grabbed it.
Right. So the other guy has to,
right.
If he wants to be mostly,
right. You have to be together. Right. If he could prove it, right. Have a good day.